Savvy Central Radio, drawing out the best from our guests with your host, Christina Nitschmann.
This is your host, Christina Nitschmann. Each week, Savvy runs weekly broadcasts providing entrepreneurs and successful individuals a platform to express their dreams, hopes, lessons learned, expertise, and wisdom with the world. Our guest at the top of the hour is Scott Hansen, high-performance coach, sought-after speaker, podcasting host, and published author. Along with working with Fortune 500 companies, he's trained and coached entrepreneurs and executives on how to live a life of purpose and significance. Find out more about Scott at scotthansenconsulting.com. In the second half of our hour, we're joined by Erik Luhrs, the Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation. He is also the author of Be, Do, Sell: How to Create More Sales Right Now, regardless of what the competition or the economy is doing, using the Guru Selling System. Find out more about Erik at erikluhrs, LUHRS.com. Hi, Scott. Welcome to Savvy Central Radio. How are you today?
I'm great, Christina. How are you?
I'm doing fabulous, and I'm doing even better that you're here.
Oh, I love it.
You're going to help our audience with two major points that we're going to touch on today, which is becoming more productive in our business on purpose. And also, we're going to touch on how creating a really successful business is not an outside job, not just having the skills and knowledge, but an inside job and how that is. So, but before we go there, let the audience know a little bit about your background, how you came to becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I love what you're doing. And for me, it was probably 15, 17-ish years in corporate sales. I worked for some of the larger media companies in sales and leadership, and bounced around into different sales arenas as well and sold different products and services. And, you know, I was on the path and on the journey like a lot of people, but I just always knew or felt that I was meant to do something different and bigger. And I don't mean that in a derogatory way for the companies that I worked for. Great companies, great people. I just knew that I was meant to be kind of on the entrepreneurial path and, again, impacting and empowering people. I call it to play bigger in their life and business. And I was always kind of the person after work. I would be beelining right over to, at the time, the Barnes & Noble or Borders books, and just would dive into the personal development and the success and the autobiographies of some of the most successful individuals, entrepreneurs typically, on the planet, and would really get this rush of, wow, what exactly did they do to become who they became? And so that was just fascinated to me, and kind of the why behind the what, right? So that would fascinate me. So I would spend hours and hours and days and weeks and months and even years sort of doing that. And again, I was also, while I was working, I would sometimes shut my door, and hopefully no one was looking at the time, but start literally giving presentations almost as if I was talking to 5,000 people about how to become a better version of themselves and what they can do and stop playing small and getting out of mediocrity. And so I knew that there was something there. I knew that God or the universe or whoever you and your audience believe in, for me it's God, was tugging at my heartstrings. And I just knew that it was that thing. I just didn't know how. I didn't know where to kind of go after that. But, ultimately I made the leap. And here we are.
Wow. So, Scott, because I had that same tugging in my heart for 7 years before I left corporate. And it was this really I'm not where I should be, where God means me to be. And it drove me crazy. I got a whole bunch of self-help books. That's when it started for me, and read what's my perfect career and all this stuff. But I had this illusion that I had to follow what society tells you is successful. In my case, what I thought growing up was you get a super high-powered corporate job, work all the way up to the top of the company, and you've made it. You get to have this awesome penthouse in Manhattan, and you've just totally made it. And I began to realize with my failing health and such that, is this really what success is? What did you find for you, and what was that aha moment that you were like, okay, I need to really be serious about living my purpose?
Well, it was just that. It was, for me, it was trying to find, I call it that purpose, that passion. And that was it was a struggle. And I don't know if anybody out there can relate, from your audience, but it was a struggle to the point where it was panic attacks, anxiety attacks, rush to the emergency room, not once, but twice. And I think I was putting so much pressure on myself, and in my mind, the years kept going by, and I still was sort of just kind of getting by, although I was making decent money and I was in these jobs. I knew that something was tugging at me. I just didn't know how, and I didn't know where, and I didn't know how to really start that or where to go after it. And so it was definitely some down years for sure. And it was tough. And, for anybody else that's struggling or has struggled, trust me, I'm right there with you. But I guess if you were to say that aha moment, I don't think that there was one specific moment, but I will say that I was with a company, sort of an online internet marketing company, sort of at a multi-level, sort of an online company, and I was trying to build my business and have the freedom and all those things that we as entrepreneurs like to talk about and like to live. For me, I met a guy who then turned me on to something else, and I remember him saying, Scott, I know you like to inspire. I know you like to add value. I know you like to coach. I know you like to ask a lot of questions and really get deep with people. And at the same time, you told us, you like to speak, and I've seen you speak, and you're really inspiring, and you have a ton of energy. Well, I'm one of the founding fathers or founding members at something called the John Maxwell team. So I've known John Maxwell for years, in that I've read tons and tons of his books. I've seen him speak on leadership. And he said, you should check this out. So without even really hesitating, I just jumped right in and became certified as a speaker, trainer, coach under the John Maxwell team. And then from there, that's kind of how it all started. This new business and this new foundation and this new empowerment that I'm in now.
And I'm guessing, I might be wrong, but I'm guessing coming from a sales background did help you as a small business owner, because one of the number one topics we get here on Savvy is more shows. Can you bring more shows back or guests that will help me with sales or cash flow in my business money? And so was it helpful having that background? And if so, how?
Yeah, I mean, having a sales background, it's interesting, is always helpful, right? But at the end of the day, and yes, there's no question. And as a high performance coach, that's what I do now. I help people close more business, and I help people get really clear on sort of their funnel and how to engage or have more important sales conversations where it's not just you feel like you're salesy and the old, I hate to say it, and they get kind of a bad rap, the used car salesman sort of mentality, or the old school way of closing and berating people. Greed is good, like in Wall Street back in the 80s, the movie. But I do teach people how to become more effective with their sales and follow up and follow through, things that you and I spoke offline about. So yes, do I think that sales helps? I do believe that sales helps. However, I also believe that there's so many other facets within the sort of the brand building arena or the company building arena. Sales is one aspect, and it's a very important aspect. And I always teach my clients, some of them will say, well, I don't like to sell. And I say, well, shame on you, because then you don't like to eat.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the reality of it is, whether you call it sales or enrollment or without being salesy, at the end of the day, something needs to be transferred. I will sell you a service or product. You in turn will need to give me money. And that's how we develop a quote unquote client relationship. So you have to, if anybody's listening out there that says, well, I don't like to sell, you have to stop saying that, because the more you say that, the more your subconscious continues to kick in and says, you're right, you're not a good salesperson. And you know what that means? That means you're not going to sell anything, which means you're not going to have any sales. So however you frame the word sales or close or enrollment, you have to get more comfortable with that, because again, at the end of the day, if you don't sell, you don't have a business.
And you don't eat. Yeah, right.
Exactly.
But also, what I come to realize, I worked in collections in corporate America, mainly helping companies with their cash flow and stuff, and helping the whole AR department. Why are you not bringing in cash flow? But I began to realize, when I looked carefully at the collection aspect, that they were really part of the sales team. They are essentially closing out the deal that the original salespeople got the signature for. But the collectors saw themselves as there were two type of collectors. One is I'm just just going to call them up, read my script, and get the cash, and they were very disconnected. And then there were a couple who said, no, I'm here to help people get on top of their accounts because we've provided them a valued service. They used it. They loved it. Now I want to help them complete the sale. And so it was interesting to realize that, on an ongoing basis, they're really just helping people. And that's what you're doing in sales. You're helping people by providing a awesome, truly valuable product, service, information that makes their life better. So, if you just reframe it to the fact that you're not taking, you're giving. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I love that. I couldn't agree with you more. I mean, at the end of the day, it's like you said, it's how you frame it. And you're always selling. You really are. I mean, you can go back to the basics. If you have kids, you're selling your kids on why they need to eat healthier. Your kids might be selling you on why they want that candy bar at 3 p.m. And if you say yes, you've just been sold. It comes down to that basic, but really.
Oh, influence. Is that it? That's it. Influence. Yeah.
Yeah. Influence. Exactly. Influence is a big part of it. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah. And now, we can I think it would be a good time to touch on the inside job part, because you can go to all the sales trainings in the universe, really get pat on, scripts and whatever. And I'm going to have my little thing down and, my presentation down and whatever it is, all the marketing bits in your company, the accounting bits, but you could still not be succeeding in your business. And there's something else going on, an inside job that needs to be worked on. Explain a little bit about that.
Yeah, well, that's a great point. I like how you framed it. It's a great point because it is perspective, to your point, and this goes with anything, whether it's learning how to build any sort of a business that you're not really used to, or maybe they're not, quote unquote, you haven't been good at, but there's a way to, number one, be better at it. And that could be, to your point, maybe it's a different script. Maybe it's a different sales training. I believe all those things, all those tools can only help your business. So that's why I'm a big advocate of always learning, right? You never come to a point where you have all the answers. You want to constantly be sharpening your saw. So if you're in sales, you better be taking sales classes. Maybe you hire a sales coach. Maybe you hire a mentor. Maybe you kind of tweak some of your scripts. But outside of that, the inside job of sales or any business is 80% of business. They say that 80% of success or business is mindset or breaking down your limiting beliefs. The other 20% is the skill set. So it's kind of like looking at an iceberg. My analogy is when you look at an iceberg, really look at an iceberg, the 20% is the mass you see above the surface. And you think, wow, that's a pretty big size piece of ice. Well, if you really look at the iceberg, especially like in photos, you'll see that 80% of that iceberg is below the surface. So I call it the 20% is the above, that's your skill sets. The 80% is the below, is your mindset. Well, when it comes to sales, it's all perspective. It's all framing. So here's just one easy example. So if you're making phone sales for your business or for your job, and you think, subconsciously or consciously, I feel like a miserable telemarketer. Okay, right away, right? You can have the greatest script in the world, like you said, but if you feel like, number one, I'm bothering people, and number two, I'm just a telemarketer, right off the bat, whether you have the greatest script or not, as soon as you get on the phone with someone, I don't know exactly how this works. I just know that it works because this is all made up of energy. And if your energy and your subconscious is giving off, I'm a miserable telemarketer, I'm bothering people, what do you think that is going to equate to? That is going to equate to, from a energy perspective, I'm bothering people. Well, that means no one's going to buy. So again, right off the bat, you have to reframe this because here's the reality. Do people buy from people that sell on the phone?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. So if they can do it, then don't you think that they have a different perspective and a different frame set than you do when it comes to the phone? So I always tell people, whether it's face-to-face, whether that's on the phone, just to kind of envision, how you want the call to go. And then rather than thinking I'm just a telemarketer or I'm bothering someone, we just discussed that people do buy from people over the phone, and they do buy from people at crazy times throughout the day. Here's an example. I have one of my best friends sells carpet, and he makes ridiculous amounts of money, high six figures, beyond six figures. He's the number one or number two person in this company, and I won't name the name. It's one of the biggest in the country for the carpet sales. Now, he has a much different perspective than maybe someone that makes $30,000 a year, and he makes a couple $100,000 a year when it comes to selling carpeting. One person might think, shit, I'm only selling carpeting. Wow, who's going to really buy? There's 5 other different companies that are maybe even better than ours. My buddy goes into it saying, absolutely, they're going to buy from me. And I know they will because I'm used to closing X amount of sales. It's a mindset. It's an attitude. It's a framework. It's all those things. And it really does convert into sales and enrollment and everything else we've been talking about. So I think that sales being an inside job, or anything being an inside job, really is the foundation. And if any of your listeners are not having success in a sales capacity, yes, again, the scripts are important. Yes, having the right presentation is important, but you have to get comfortable realizing that here's the number one thing. Your listeners might want to take notes on this, which is this. It is all about the approach. It's all about your attitude. So if you approach something to think that, well, I'm just bothering someone, or I don't really believe in myself, put the phone down and get really get better acquainted with your products or service. If you don't think you have the best product or service going into a phone call, going into a face-to-face meeting, writing a sales copy, doing some sort of a blog post or whatever it is you're doing, then you, number one, stop what you're doing and really get I really want you to take a look at your products or services. And if you don't think that you have the best in the industry, number one, either quit what you're doing, and that might sound harsh, quit what you're doing, or go work for another company that has the best products or services, or you need to really talk yourself into and start loving the products or services. Because here's the deal. When you're approaching someone and you think you have the cure for cancer, why wouldn't you approach everyone? The answer is I would approach everyone.
Yeah.
But if your products or services are just subpar in your mind, I have news for you. I don't care how nice you dress when you go face to face, or what your phone selling voice sounds like over the phone. You will not close business if you don't believe in your products or services.
Scott, I'm so glad we're hitting this, because I think everyone has truly valuable gifts and talents inside. But how you present them to the world, if you don't believe in them, and one, are they even something that people want? So, I mean, like you said, go within. But if you're seeing that, hey, what I've got out there right now is not something I truly feel people can value from, and you don't believe in it, they're definitely not going to believe in it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they can read that again. No matter how much, this is going to sound a little harsh, a little interesting, but the old saying is, when you have a cow pie, right, and you can put all the frosting on the cow pie you want and make it nice and pretty and make it decorative and this and that, but at the end of the day, the cow pie is underneath all that frosting. Meaning, it starts with the foundation. It starts with your belief or your limiting belief about anything that you're doing. If you don't believe in what you're selling or what you're proposing, then to your point, why should anybody else believe in it?
Yeah. That is such a great point. And I can totally relate, as I'm sure a lot of business owners can. In the beginning, I had started my business here, Savvy, about 3 years ago. And I had this idea that sales was all about taking. It was not a giving thing. It was a taking thing. And I love to give. So I would get on the phone thinking, I'm taking their time, I'm taking their money, all this stuff. And of course, I would sit there and try to give as much value on the phone, but never even end the call with asking for the sale. I would never even mention money. And sometimes people would stop me. Weren't we doing a sales call here? How much do you charge? And I'll send you my brochure. But it was just horrible. And I got to the point where and it was thanks to a wonderful caller that pushed me to the edge, that made me realize that what I was doing is hurting myself, and people were not getting a truly valuable service that I could provide to them based on my beliefs. So
I think you hit the nail on the head, because here's the reality. the reality of it is you can present, you can give and give and give and give. And I believe that giving does start the receiving process. I do. However, to your point, there comes a time in the conversation, there comes a time in the video, there comes a time in the article you write, whatever that is, whatever platform you or your listeners have, there comes a time when you have to convert people into a customer. If you want to eat, if you want to grow your business, you have to ultimately convert them into a customer. How you do that, if we had 3 more hours, then we could cover all that. Yeah. But at the end of the day, you have to have something on how to convert people into a customer. Like you said, asking for the sale. I mean, there's 1,000,001 ways, whether there's through scripts, whether there's through positioning, whether there's through what I call having an irresistible offer to offer people. I mean, there's 1,000,001 ways to do that. And if any of your listeners are curious on how to do that, they can find me and we can talk about it. Maybe at the end of the show, I can give you sort of where to contact me. But at the end of the day, to your point, you have to convert people. Otherwise, it's just a friendly conversation. You want people to realize that you're a good person, but you also want people to realize not only are you a good person, but you're a hell of a business person, because now I bought Christina's products and services and it's changed my life. And the only way for you to get that sort of aha moment is for you to sell them something.
Yeah. And it's an amazing feeling. The first sale I made, where I actually went to the whole end of the call and said, okay, here's what I charge. And in the beginning, it was a little uncomfortable stating price. And they're like, oh, okay. Oh, how do I get started with that? And I was like, oh, okay, you want to go forward. But, it's an amazing feeling. You're like, I just sold something of my true valued gifts and talents to the world that is going to better the world. And darn, that was awesome. But now we only have 5 minutes left, but I want to touch, if you could let the audience know 3 top ways that they could become more productive on purpose. Because I think it's such an important topic. We could do a couple hours on that. But I think to start with 3 tips would be awesome.
So this is something that I teach way more in depth in my coaching program, because like we alluded to in the beginning, as solopreneurs, or even if you have a couple people on your team, time is of the essence. Time is truly money. And it's a very serious topic. And what I just personally started recently doing, as sophomoric or as basic as this sounds, I literally have printed off, I call it a time map. And that time map literally is from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. and it's by the hour. And I will so for example, it's not your goals. I will spend, for example, let's say I get up at 7 and from 7 to 8:30, I'm doing my meditation, I'm doing my goal setting, and I'm writing it down. So after the 2 hours, I wrote down what I just accomplished. It's basically like if you want to lose weight, it's like doing a snapshot of what you ate throughout the day, or how many steps you've taken, or how many bottles of water you've drank. And it's exactly what this is, but in your business life. And you will be blown away at the time that you waste. It's unbelievable. The time you waste doing things you think is productive, but it's really just busy work. And I always tell people, busy does not equal productive. I will say that again. Busy does not equal productive. A second thing that your listeners can take with them is, besides having a time map, is really getting crystal clear on the 3 income producing activities that drive your business. I call them the 3 IPAs. Only 3. Now you might have 2, you might have 4, but really 3 is the sweet spot. And we don't have enough time to get into how that works, but just get crystal clear on if someone were to put a gun to your head and say, what are the 3 activities, the 3 things that drive the biggest results? And what's results? Well, that's money. That's, bringing money in the door. What are the 3 things that drive the biggest results? You have to get crystal clear on that, and then spend 80 to 85% of your time doing those things, and then you delegate the rest to other people.
That is really, really informative tips. And I love the mapping. I've heard of people doing the scheduling, where you schedule every moment of your time, or put blocks of time that I'm doing sales here and this there, so that everything is mapped out as far as time and schedule. But I've never quite heard it done where at the end of the day, you actually write down every single thing you did and the time frame.
And I would say just one step to that. It's not at the end of the day because you'll forget. Okay. I would say every 2 hours or 3 hours, you put as simple as this. You put a line under 10 a.m. and then 3 hours later, you put a line under 1 o'clock and then a line underneath 4 o'clock. And then you literally, those are the blocks that after those times, you go back and then just remember what you did for those last 3 hours. Because otherwise, if you're like me, you got 75 things going on, you'll forget kind of what you did. But I'm telling you, this snapshot really is a game changer. It's an eye opener to, wow, I really spent my day sort of wasting time, or I was really productive today. And then at the end of the day, it's repetition. The more you continue to do that and be more consistent, the more results you're going to get.
Wow. And that is so true. I tried something similar. I don't know what they called it when I did it, but I did something, and I've heard people do it for dieting purposes, but I did it with money, where I carried a notebook for a month and wrote down every penny that came out of my wallet, whether it was a stick of gum or a slice of pizza. And I was amazed at two things. One, how much money I was spending on crap, but also how much crap I was buying to eat. I mean, no, seriously, I was working at a corporate job and I was buying like upwards of, I think $20 a week in vendor machine stuff, which is, as you know, not really healthy food. And I'm wondering, well, I not only am broke, I'm really fat. I wonder why. So actually the two things helped me see two areas in my life that I could clean up.
Yeah, and it's the old latte factor by David Bach. You know, the book, The Automatic Millionaire, I think it was, when he talks about, you know, being able to put away the extra $3, $4, $5 a day if you just forget about the latte, have your own company's coffee. You know, it's not quite the same, maybe a Starbucks, but it's the latte factor. You start compounding $5 a day times 5 days is $25 a week times, you know, for the year, and you can start putting money away. So it's similar to that. Yeah.
Well, I mean, I found I was also buying snacks at the local store around the corner and bringing it and putting it in my drawer. But when you look at, okay, where did my money go and what did I spend it on? I realized that, you know, open my drawer and is there anything really food value here? I mean, there's nuts and there's candy, but none of this is really feeding my soul and feeding my body. And it's costing me money. So, I mean, I think it was a wonderful tool, and I can only imagine that doing the time mapping is that much more valuable as well. And, so these are really great tips. Thank you so much, Scott. Before we head on out, let everyone know where they can find out more about you and you know, work with you.
Yeah, great. Well, again, I appreciate the time, Christina. You're doing some awesome things, and your energy is infectious, and nothing but great success for you, and I'm sure your audience knows that. But for me, it's interesting, as I don't know when this will ultimately be released, but by the way, as an aside, when will this be released?
This should probably be released in early spring.
Okay, cool. Okay, perfect. So my book will be out by the time this gets released. It's actually the same exact name as my successful podcast. So I have a highly acclaimed podcast under business on iTunes called Success Hackers, Cracking the Entrepreneurial Code. So you can just go to successhackers.net to check out the podcast. And also just released my brand new book where I collaborated with 9 other successful entrepreneurs to get their insights, one problem, one solution. So you definitely want to check that out too. It's also called Success Hackers, but you can get all this information on my website, which is Scott Hansen Consulting, scotthansenconsulting.com, and you can check out all that. And then I would just say lastly is, if you are interested in an ebook, and this ebook's pretty intense, it actually talks about 5 ways to really grow your sales and really have a massively growing business. It's very simple, massivebusinessgrowth.com. Massivebusinessgrowth.com. You can check out the ebook, and then from the ebook, you'll see that there might be an opportunity, depending on when you get this, that you can also do a business breakthrough strategy call, a coaching call with me. And depending on this timing, it might be free. So if you get that, you'll see that there's an opportunity to also to get a coaching session with me as well. And we can really help you get clarity around your business and really, give you some steps on how to grow your business in a massive way.
Wow. Well, this has been truly informative and wonderful talk today. We must have you back to go more in depth. I mean, because that last topic, becoming more productive on purpose, that could take hours in itself. So
I agree. Thank you.
Well, I want to thank you again, Scott, for coming to Savvy Central Radio and sharing your gifts and talents today.
Thank you, Christina.
And now our interview with Erik Luhrs. Hi, Erik. Thanks for coming to Savvy Central Radio today. How are you?
I am awesome, Christina. Thank you for having me on.
Well, I'm excited to have you talk about a subject that comes up often on my show, which is sales and lead generation, a very important subject. And you've become known as the Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation. I'd love for you to tell our audience a little bit about your story and how you came to be known as the Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation.
Well, it's actually a title that most of the title was given to me by a client. But I guess the little bit of backstory is I do strategy on lead generation, sales and lead generation with my clients. And I've also been a martial artist for 20 plus years. So I love Bruce Lee, and I love the methodology that he applied to martial arts, how to teach it, how to apply, how to actually do it, etc. So in my thinking, when I'm applying what I learned from my mentors in sales, marketing, lead generation, I often kind of utilize his ways of applying martial arts to applying my sales and lead generation techniques. So I was working with one of my clients, and I'll if you get me in the right mood, I'll just start quoting Bruce Lee left, right, and center. So, and just for anybody who's ever interested, I think Tao of Jeet Kune Do, even though it's a martial arts book, is probably one of the best business books you can buy, but that's a completely different story. So I was quoting Bruce Lee, several times to this client all at once to explain various concepts to him and what he should be doing. And he said, you're really kind of like a Bruce Lee of sales. And I was like, wow, that's really cool. And for a year, I said, boy, that would be an awesome title. I am not up to taking on that mantle. I was like, I can't do it. But it just kept sitting there, and I'd written it down on a piece of paper. I had it sitting there on my desk, and I kept looking at it, and it was like, are you ready? Am I really ready for this? And finally, after like a year, I was like, all right, I will accept this. I will take on this title, this unique sales title, as I call it. And I took it on, and then after a while with that, my focus went into lead generation. So I've really, for the past couple of years, been hyper focused on lead generation. And so I myself added in the lead generation piece. I said, okay, so part of it's given. And then part of it is what I did with it. So I think life is about the cards that you're dealt, and then how do you play those cards? So I think my title is kind of the manifestation of, I was given a certain amount of cards, and then how did I play them? So that is how I ended up with that title.
And were you you said you didn't want to take up the title at first. Was it because you have a great admiration, I would assume, for Bruce Lee?
Oh yeah, that was the whole thing. It was like to be the Bruce Lee of of anything. It was like the Bruce Lee of peanut butter sandwiches. I would have been like, I don't know. So I was and then when you put it into what I do for a living, I was like, ooh, that was just it took a while for me to grow into that.
No, I could totally get that. And I want to ask you, because I've heard people say that people don't buy features, they buy benefits. And I've heard this often, but you claim this isn't exactly accurate. And why is this? Well,
it was for a while. So, you have to look at the evolution of sales. For hundreds, thousands of years, the feature was everything. It was like, ooh, look, shiny box, and people would just buy it. And then in the 20th century, when people had more than one thing to choose from, they was like, oh, wait a minute, you have a shiny box too. Oh, all of a sudden it's like, okay, but then you had to start, comparing the two shiny boxes to each other. Well, my shiny box opens and has shiny inside. Well, mine has plush red inside. So you started talking about the features and then the benefits. It's like, okay, this shiny box inside, you can look at yourself. This shiny box inside, you can put rings and look at rings and whatever. So it was like, okay, the benefit of this box versus the benefit of that box. And now you have so many competitors. You have so many shiny boxes and so many potential boxes that people can buy that it's like commoditization is just rampant everywhere. So what people really need, and because there's so many, since the commodities happened, people already presume when they see a shiny box, they go, "Oh, I know it's a shiny box." You say you're a chiropractor, I know what a chiropractor is. You say, you sell tires, I know what tires are. So I already assume that I know all the features. I already assume I know all the benefits. Mm-hmm. Well, then what happens then? So the next step is not. So there's a next piece here, which is you have to go from features to benefits to context. Okay, so feature is what the thing, it's whatever, a big wheel, benefit, it grips in the snow, but what's the context? So the context would be, well, now you'll never slip, driving out of your driveway in August when the plow comes, or not in August, in February when the plow comes by and buries your driveway in snow because they don't care about you and the town truck just goes, and takes all the snow for the past half a mile and dumps it in front of your driveway as they drive by. Like, oh yeah, now all of a sudden that tire has a context that the rest of the snow tires didn't. It's the one that'll get you over the mound that the town plow leaves in front of your driveway.
So let me see if I understand this. So the feature would just be pointing out the thing you're selling, and the benefits would be showing what it can do for you. Mm-hmm. But the context will actually put it into practice and give you a picture of how that'll make your life better.
It puts it in. So it's about, what does this immediately mean to me? So a feature would be, the nice deep crevices in the tire. The benefit would be it grips in snow. Okay, but then what does that mean to me? Well, what that means is the snow in front of your driveway that the town will dump there because you get snowed on January through February every other day, and it's always 7:30 in the morning when you're leaving for work and you discover there's an 8-inch pile of snow at the end of your driveway and you're already late, and this is the tire that will blast through the snow for you. Mm-hmm. So all of a sudden it has a context to it. Mm-hmm. It's contextualized to your situation, because people are always saying, because the subconscious, I study the subconscious is always asking, what does this mean to me? And benefits have, when your benefits are the same as everybody else's benefits, automatically the brain is saying, okay, but what's the difference between you and this? What is your shiny box with the shiny interior, other than these other 20 boxes with shiny interiors? What does it mean to me? Why am I going to buy a new shiny box if I already have one? Blah blah blah. So it's always about, what does this mean to me? That's what the subconscious is always asking. What does this mean to me?
I love what you're saying right there, because I think a lot of us in business focus on, here's what makes me unique, meaning me, the person selling, instead of saying, okay, how am I going to uniquely help you? It's about you. How am I going to help you? Because you're only thinking about me yourself.
Yep. That's all. People don't care about what you do or what you sell. They only care about what they care about. And we want to talk to what they care about, not what we want them to care about.
Wow. And I got this, I think several months in. I was trying to sell a product early on that I felt people really wanted, and I wasn't getting any feedback until I started to pay attention to the feedback I was getting, which is saying they wanted a totally different product. And until I listened to what people, the audience was actually telling me, and I presented them that's when the results started to change. So I like what you're saying there, to remember, what is it that my audience or my clients really desire?
Oh yeah, always ask them, what they want, because the best person to design your products or your services is your clients, not you. Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So why do you think so many business owners, especially new business owners, struggle so much with sales in their business?
Well, I think most people struggle with sales because when they go in, the biggest mistake that people do when they get new, they're new to business or something, is they go and they look at what their quote unquote competitors are doing. And they say, oh, well, if I'm going to sell a shiny box, let me look at what everybody else who sells a shiny box is doing. Okay, well, they're all putting ads here. They're all saying this. They're all using this picture. They're all putting an ad on these days. And so we automatically go, if they must know what they're doing. they couldn't possibly be wasting money, you know what I mean, and just stupidly doing things without knowing what they're doing. So let me copy them. Mm-hmm. And so when we start to, as soon as we start to copy, and we start to say, doing what, selling what other people sell, and selling the way other people sell, and saying the things that other people say, all we are doing is automatically saying, me too. They do this, me too. When you are a me too business, or when you present yourself as a me too business, you're automatically asking subconsciously. Again, all I care about is the subconscious. You're telling the prospect, you're talking to the subconscious of the prospect, and you're saying, I'm like Kentucky Fried Chicken, so compare me to Kentucky Fried Chicken. Then I'm automatically opening the doorway for them to want to compare me. And as soon as the comparison thing starts, it's like there's always the race to the bottom, which is price. And that's how you end up on a phone with somebody saying, I know you want $7,000 for it, but I can get it over here for $5,300. So I'll buy it from you for $5,200 as long as you throw in this extra thing, before you know it, you're giving away the house and getting nothing in return. So I think that not having a clear, not being clear on how you're different, what that means to the market, why the market wants it, how you present to the market, not being effective at sales and marketing, and more to the point, lead generation. I think that these are the key reasons why most businesses fail.
Wow. And I like what you just said there, because this recalls to me when I first got started that there were a couple of very successful businesses that I tried to copy. And whereas they are successful, I'm not them, and nor actually did I have a passion for what I was trying to put out there and promote that they have for their thing that they were promoting. So yes, you can take certain aspects of what someone might be doing right, but just to copy them, you're right. You're going on and just telling people like, well, look, I can do what he does. But don't you think there's also a problem then, like the people that you might be copying might have also, of course, built up the credibility. Of course, people now know and trust them. You haven't built that up. So now what you're saying is you're only getting them to buy you based on the lower price, because that's all you have maybe other than what they have.
Well, yeah. I mean, if I go out there and I take on IBM, I'm not going to be able to charge the prices that an IBM charges, because they have X decades of like you said, credibility. They are the known entity. They have a humongous marketing budget. They can easily say no to a project and not, or a sale and not feel it. So yeah, when you are saying me too, it's like that you're automatically saying compare me. You're automatically saying this is a commodity. If it's a commodity, compare me to this. And if you're comparing me to the big guy, and since I'm an unknown entity, you're gonna expect to pay less for me. It's like when you go into the tire store and you ask for, it's like, well, they say here's the $500 tire, and it does this and it does that and it does this, and you start going, do you have anything around 65? And they go in the back and they open up an old box and they blow dust off and go, we got these things, knockoffs that from, I think somebody imported illegally from North Korea. You want these? Like, oh, okay, yeah, and because you're all of a sudden, 3 weeks later the tires are bald. You go, I don't understand. So you can't even deliver the best. You can't even deliver the right quality because again, you're not making the money. So it's the race to the bottom. Yeah. So that whole commodity thing is just it kills businesses.
Wow. And you also were talking about the subconscious. Go into that a little bit, and how does that play in, and how do small business owners get stuck in letting their subconscious or maybe their limiting beliefs stop them from thriving in their sales and in their business?
Well, I mean, so that's the subconscious. That's a different take on it, though. I'm always studying the subconscious of the prospect. In terms of the subconscious of a business owner, because I mean, from time to time I study that too. What I see when business owners go, or somebody new to business. So let's talk about somebody new to business, because usually if you've already been burned, you've already opened and had to close several businesses, you've learned a good amount of lessons. So, but for somebody who's kind of new, pretty much starting from scratch, the biggest the biggest subconscious issue they have is worth. Their feeling of, so when they go into a marketplace, I can even talk about myself as an example. When I first, started out in business coaching about 8-9 years ago, at first I was like, there was big name people out there, who, making millions of dollars, who were big time business coaches and everything. And I was like, I'm some peon, you've never heard of me. And, so for me to, say I was, really worth anything, my first bunch of clients were paying me $197 a month.
Wow.
I was spending, and for that they got a 2-hour phone call per week. And so I had a ton of clients, and I was actually making like 6 figures.
Wow.
But I was working my tail off. Okay. Yeah. And I mean, I got to the point, I remember when I went from 197 to 297, and I was like, oh, what a big, bold move that was. You know what I mean? I was like, wow, I must be moving up in the world. And after a while it was like, why do but I keep getting all these clients, and it was like, well, people are getting value from me. And it was, and it took a while to really make that connection. It's like, wait a minute. If people get value from what I do must be valuable. And if what I do is valuable, what is really the ability, what is the valuability of what I'm doing? And so, that's why I really focused in on sales and marketing. I said, okay, of all the things I'm teaching people, this is really the stuff that's, and so that's why I dove deeper into that. I said, this is the stuff that's really the juice that's making things happen. And all of a sudden, it was like, I started to believe more and more in myself. And all of a sudden, I remember the day that the first time I said to somebody, I'll charge $1,000 a month, and at that point in time, I was saying, you could have 1 call a week for half an hour or something. And I was like, $1,000? And they're like, okay. And I'm like, wow. And it was like, that's amazing. And finally move up into the people I work with and the fees I charge now. And it was all about beliefs. So I think from a standpoint, when you're starting out in business, most people mistakenly believe that because they are new, that they are less valuable than somebody who has been around doing in this industry for 20 years. I will tell you that it's actually my belief that new makes you more valuable. And that's because you aren't already stuck in the status quo mire of the industry. So when people say so I love when people say to me like, Erik, do you know I'm we're a financial planning company. Do you know our industry? And I go, now I've worked with, a number of companies, but, the first time was like, no, and you don't want me to, because the entire value I bring is that I bring the experience from other industries. And you can hire any moron who does, who works on sales and marketing for the financial planning industry, who's done it with, a bunch of other companies. What are they going to do? They're going to roll in the same stuff that they did with everybody else that was effective for the, and when they tell you, with this tactic, we increased this company's, systems by, or income by 200% in 1 year. Yeah, that was probably the first company you used it for. You've used it for 10 companies since then. I'll guarantee you, your numbers have been going down, 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 down. Why? Because the tactic was already, you were shot and done. You know what I mean? So new, you come in with a fresh eyes. You haven't done this before. So you have entirely new perspectives, ideas, tactics, strategies. You're the guy who doesn't understand anything, and you're going to ask the question that's going to magically make things happen because you're not assuming that you know anything. And so new to me I work in the consulting and strategy world. And in that world, to me, new is always better. But I think in virtually any industry, new is always better. Not clueless, no, but new with an understanding, at least a basic understanding, I think is great. And so I would say to people, own your value. Don't undercut yourself. Don't Don't cut your prices or anything because you say, well, I've never worked in this industry before. If somebody says to you, do you know my industry? Say, no, and you don't want me to, and here's why.
Wow, this is a totally new way of looking at it. And I think more businesses should look at it that way because it is true. If you've always been in a certain industry, your mind is clouded and you can't see a new perspective. You've kind of, as you said, been mired into the status quo. And then seeing something or having someone come in that's seeing it from fresh eyes, that's never been in this situation, they can just say one thing and you're like, wow, it's so simple. Why didn't we ever think of that? Yeah.
That's the power of new.
Wow. And you mentioned also how in the beginning you were kind of trading your time for dollars and it kind of felt okay until you really started to see and believe in your worth. And how did that come about for you that you were able to make that switch? Because I'm sure a lot of people listening in would be like, I would love to be able to really see myself as valuable and be able to charge what I think I'm worth, but how do I even decide what that should be?
Well, how to charge what you're worth, and well, there's two pieces to that. How do you feel your value, and then how do you charge? Feeling your value, it's an individual process. Some people can, for years, my mentor kept telling me. I mean, that was the great thing is I love my mentor. He kept saying, I'm really tired of you undervaluing yourself. I'm tired of hearing you tell me how not valuable you are. And he would repeatedly tell me to remove my head from a specific part of my body and get with it and start without him pushing me, there was points in time I probably would have just been like, yeah, I'll stick to 197 a month. So having that outside person, I think, was very valuable. And you also have to go through your process. It might take you just one time, somebody telling you, I think you're amazing and wonderful. And it can hit the right nerve and change everything. For me, it was a process. And then, there was a series of clients and a series of, very big, broad new ideas that I just kind of pulled out of nowhere and started implementing with people. And all of a sudden they started having incredible results. And it was like, I realized I'm the only one who thinks this way. I'm the only one who does this. I'm the only one. And as soon as I understood I'm the only one doing this, thinking this, having this, instantly, like night and day. It was like, I realized, wait a minute, I'm the only one standing on top of this mountain. And I own the mountain. You know what I mean? Nobody's even on the mountain with me, and people want this mountain. Oh, and all of a sudden everything was good. So, that was my experience. But again, you got to go through your own process, and I'd love for people to just, I guess the easiest technique is one of the things I tell people is something called act as if. So act as if you're King Kamehameha of whatever you do, that you're the big head honcho of whatever you do. And just stick your chest out and, stand up straight and be like, I'm king of dog grooming or whatever it is that you do. And all of a sudden, the physiology a lot of times adds to, makes you feel better about yourself. So that's one technique you can use to kind of own your own value, at least momentarily. In terms of pricing, I price now on the value that I deliver. So, I always ask myself, whatever I'm charging, I want it to be worth at least 10 times what I'm charging the person. Mm-hmm. So, when I charge, I charge, in the thousands of dollars, like just for if I have my retainer clients or if I'm doing projects, 6 figures sometimes. It's always about what the worth of what I'm doing is. So if I'm charging like for one of my, like 25 grand or something for one of my 1-day on-site intensives that I do with, companies. I have to know that the strategies we're putting together for lead generation for them are going to produce so many leads that the $25K that they're paying me is a pittance. Compared to, like I look and I say, okay, this company is already doing $5 million a year. And I look at how badly they're doing lead generation. And I say, even if they miss 90% up of what we're putting together today, the 10% that they're going to improve on, is still going to produce, an extra $2 million a year of sales for them, which makes the $25K, not even a thing. So 10 times. So think about 10 timesing your value.
I love that. And you also mentioned in there, I heard, really basing it on results, not on the work you do. Because I've heard people say, well, I worked XYZ amount of time for this person. That's not what they're interested in. What value are they going to get when they leave you that they can apply to their business or to their life?
Right. So a lot of time, charging for time is contractor charging. How many hours you will be sitting at a typewriter. And this is one of the first disqualifiers, because it's about disqualifying people as quickly as possible when I'm talking to them. One of the first things that I'll tell is, like if I say what I'm going to charge, and they're like, well, how many hours a week are you going to do for that? I go, okay, we're done. Because as soon as I hear that, I know, okay, they're not valuing the results. They're trying to go for time, and that's not going to work for me. So I always go for results. What's the value that I bring?
Got it. Absolutely. So you work on lead generation, and for the folks out there who might be new and launching and they're not quite sure what that means, could you explain a little bit about lead generation and why is it important for your business?
Well, lead generation lead generation is the single most important part of a business, because literally without leads, you can't have people like, I want sales. Something has to happen before the sale. Mm-hmm. You got to get a lead. You know what I mean? You got to have a real prospect to talk to try and sell your product or your service to. So, there's many things. A lot of people worry about, having capital, working capital. They worry about space. They worry about this. They worry about that. To me, first and foremost, if you're not overflowing with leads, everything else is meaningless to me. Everything else is meaningless. If you're not overflowing with leads, then you're straight into survival mode. And when you're in survival mode is when you're most likely not to survive. You want to be in abundance mode, and the only way to get into abundance mode is to have as many leads as possible. So lead generation, to me, and again, I'm biased. I'm the Bruce Lee of sales and lead generation. So if I was the Bruce Lee of accounting, I'd probably tell you accounting is the most important thing in a business. But for me, without leads, nothing else happens.
Well, indeed. You do indeed need money coming into your business. You need the accounting portion to take care of it. But if you don't have any sales, you don't have anything to work with in accounting. So indeed, yes. Let everyone know out there, because we are coming to the end of our time together, how they can get in contact with you if they want to work with you, find out more information about you.
The easiest way to get in touch with me is our website is guruselling.com. So that's GURU selling, SELLING.com. And our contact information, snail mail, phone number, email, etc., is all there.
Awesome. And before we head on out here, Erik, please, do you have any last words you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I guess the last words, the most important things about business, again, is first and foremost, believe in yourself. Like once you've made the decision to be in business, to do whatever you're going to do, believe in yourself and just make sure you got enough leads coming in. I think that would be the two pieces of advice I would give everybody.
Awesome. And if you don't and you have problems in that area, please give Erik a call and go to their website at guruselling.com. And thank you again, Erik, for coming to Savvy Central Radio.
And thank you.
Join our mailing list today by texting Savvy Radio to find out about upcoming guests and events and receive a free gift, how podcasting can help increase sales and influence in your business.
Savvy Central Radio is home to over 100,000 listeners per month globally and runs in syndication on 8 AM and FM platforms, including iHeartRadio and 6 podcasting platforms. To find out more about our paid sponsorship opportunities or to become a guest and find out how we can help you get your message out to the world, call 718 area code 713-2289 or email at savvycentralradio@gmail.com.
Welcome to the Racing to Success Minute with Nadine Lajoie. Focus like you can die. What I mean by that is if every business owner would focus like they can die, your business would grow so much faster. As a motorcycle racer, the focus is the only way you can stay on your bike and you can stay alive. So everything you have to do need to be focused in the moment. Even if you have many things to do around the racetrack, around your business, each task that you are doing, you are focusing on that present moment. Either on your email, on your to-do list. When you do that for 10, 15, or 30 minutes, you do that with a real focus. So focus like you can die with Nadine at nadineracing.com.